This is the front of the Radford National Naval Museum in Newcomerstown, Ohio. It is being assembled and put together by Vane Scott, who is the president of the Radford Association. We will now move inside where Vane Scott will give us a narration on the progress of the museum.
Well, my name's Vane Scott. I'm national president of the USS Radford Association, and we've just walked in the front door of the USS Radford National Naval Museum that we're getting ready to dedicate September 28th, 2001. And my friend, Mr. Marshall, is here from the O'Bannon, past president of the O'Bannon Association, and he's taking some film here of what you're going to see when you come to visit us. When you come in the front door, you're in kind of a lobby here. We're going to be showing these flags, which is Taiwan, or Republic of China, Taiwan, Vietnam, and then we have a South Korea flag that will be standing here on poles to show some of the foreign flavor of the museum. From the Helena Swim Club. Here we have an original oil painting that my wife Barbara and I had commissioned to a maritime artist in Massachusetts, Herb Hewitt. We have the same picture available in 16 by 24 inch full color prints for the guys that served on Radford that want to get it and get it framed for their den. Here we have a reminder that Radford was famous for having spawned 8 men that went on to become flag officers for Admiral after they left the Radford. And we're pretty proud of them. You'll hear more about that later. Then we come over here to our registration table, and this is where people see that the last folks come in here are Chuck and Gene Marshall, so we're welcoming them again. He's the man behind the camera. All right. Now, these are at the top pictures of all 17 commanders of the Radford. July 1942. I'll have to get that corrected. But we have all 17 commanders. We're missing 3, but those 2 of those will be up there when we dedicate. Below them are pictures of the first Radford, number 120. And as you can see over there, that was filmed right at the end of World War II. Then we have a picture of Admiral Radford on a ship that's in between there, and another picture of the first Radford. DG-120 was built too late to really get anything going in World War I, and they were at sea for about 25 years and then were scrapped, were sunk actually in the Atlantic to fulfill our obligation of reducing arms after World War I. So the original Radford is on the bottom of this thing. You'll see other pictures of the Radford 1942-43 configuration when she went to war. And then beyond that are the 1950 and 60 configurations. Radford had 4 different configurations during her 25 years in commission. And we have, of course, extensive pictures of all of them. Now, you're looking at a patch that is called the Huck King. Radford and her crew are pretty proud of this, especially the 1960s crew during Vietnam. The United Nations Armada elected USS Radford as the Huck King, which means Hunter of Underwater Killers. And that's the patch that they wore. And us guys from World War II and Korea are pretty proud that they managed to get that. And there are several reasons why, which we can't go into right now. We're looking at part of our, what we call the ship store here. We have a little bit of everything for sale here at the museum, from kids' t-shirts and men's t-shirts, golf shirts, sweatshirts, jackets, satin jackets, and hats. And we're going to eventually have more stuff like cups and things of that nature, because people like refrigerator magnets, so those are pretty popular. Yeah, now you're looking at a couple of showcases here. The one on your right, as you can see, has an official Navy blanket in it. You remember the old wool itchy blankets that had USN on them? And then associated with that is a shirt in there that was worn sonar room in the 1960s when the sonar man left, a very popular guy, and so they took the chronometer off of the wall and mounted it on a plaque and gave it to him. And he also gave us a flag. Wish list, never thinking I'd get one, and he sent a Colt 45 in the holster, wrapped up in a uniform, and shipped at UPS. So if you ever want to ship a gun, just in the middle on top is a framed picture of a periscope photo that was given to our Captain George Peed from war games that he had been involved in the when was that? The 1960s, and a submarine had challenged him, and they went out into the 300 square mile area where they could do all this. The submarine hid, but Radford found him and sort of sunk him, and then came back, and when they came back to port, George Peed, his transfer orders were there, and he left, and the captain of the submarine never got a chance to congratulate him. But 30 years later, Captain Peed received this photograph at a Christmas party, and it said, "Merry Christmas. If you would have missed, you would have been ours," because the photo is through the periscope, and Radford, the bridge, is right on the crosshairs. Well, you're looking at the old familiar foul weather jackets from back in World War II. You remember those, and how that canvas helmet itched your ears and all that stuff, but it did keep you warm. And I don't know about you, but I wore mine for about 10 years after the war during cold winter. Now we're going to pan up to the familiar F-4U Vought Corsair. That airplane was flown by the Marines off of carriers in the Pacific, and I'm sure you remember seeing them with their inverted gull wings. One of the best looking carrier planes ever built. That model is a gas model that was built by a man here in town that crashed it about 20 years ago and threw it up in the garage in the attic, and when he found out about us, he knew we would want that, radio-controlled gas model. And it's kind of ironic because on the other side of the plane next to the pilot are 4 little Japanese flags. So the guy did his duty. Now here we have an officer's winter coat. This fellow was a lieutenant on the Radford, and he sent it. And as I mentioned earlier, the Radford had 4 configurations. This is the Radford in the early part of World War II, 43. In 1944, well, December of 43, and given more guns and all. The early 60s, she was what was called frammed and had a flight deck put on the stern for radio-controlled helicopters, a dash program, and of course you can see the mast is what they call the tripod mast, and that identifies the Radford of the 1960s. You're looking at our presidential unit citation. We don't have the original one, but we're going to get it eventually. This one was issued to us by the Department of the Navy. And down below you see 2 3-inch 50 practice shells. Now above all this is our namesake, Rear Admiral William Radford from Fincastle, Virginia. He was a big hero back in the 1860s and 70s and 80s. He was sort of like a Halsey back in those days. Everybody knew who he was. And that's how he got his destroyer named after him. And so there he is. Pretty good looking guy. This pea packet here is not from the Radford. This is from a friend, Don Denmead, who served on the Nicholas back in he was on during Korea. And we're missing a button here, but we have the button, and it will be sewn on there in time. Now up here we have more pictures of the Radford that have been collected, and the large picture is the USS Helena. That is an oil painting of the Helena at the moment of impact of the torpedoes that eventually sunk her in the Battle of Kula Gulf. Underneath that is a picture of Abigail Van Buren. Dear Abby, fortunately, came to our reunion in Chicago, which we celebrated or observed the 50th anniversary of the sinking of the Helena and the rescue at Kula Gulf with the Radford and the Nicholas. Abigail is a honorary Radford sailor and the best looking one of the bunch. Looking at our pride and joy, this is a sculpture, life-size, depicting the rescue at Kula Gulf. I did the original drawing for the Chicago meeting of the 50th anniversary of this rescue, where dear Abby attended. And when a sculptress friend of ours from town here saw that original artwork, she wanted to know if she could do a life-size sculpture, and I said yes. So this is what she came up with from my drawing. Now I did the background of this, and she did the hands and the water. It's depicting a man being pulled out of the water who is drowning. Incidentally, the sailor standing here on guard, the shore patrol, is in my uniform that I was discharged in back in 1946. And I served shore patrol in San Francisco one time. But that's my uniform from 1946. Looking at an original, this is the 5 Sullivan brothers that were lost in early part of World War II. And this is an original government poster for the Navy. And it was sent to us by a man that collected this, and it was his prized possession. And when the family found out that their uncle had served on the Radford, he sent it to me to be shown in the museum here with his uncle's name on it. And his uncle was on the Radford the same time I was as a electrician. And this was the family's prized possession. So now we have it. And incidentally, that family alone has sent us almost $2,000 in donations. Right next to it on the left is a rubbing of on a plaque from the Vietnam Wall in Washington, D.C. Radford lost a couple of guys in the Vietnam War that had served on Radford, and that was one of them, one of the most popular officers that ever served on the ship. And his name was Douglas Vaughn, and he was lost up one of those rivers and asked to be buried at sea from his beloved Radford. And his wish was done, and they took him out 20 miles out to the shelf, and he was buried at sea off the coast of Vietnam. Looking at something rare here in these parts anyway, this is a Soviet naval officer's uniform, and we don't have the pants. Evidently, they couldn't get the pants, but we have the hat and the coat. And we're still trying to find out what rank this is. He's done up here like he would be a what you might call a rear admiral, but his stripes are showing Lieutenant J.G. in our Navy, but he's got 3 stars on his shoulders, so we're still trying to find out what rank this is. His hat has the Soviet Union red star on it with the sickle and hammer in the middle. So with Radford operating against the Soviet Navy all during the Cold War, why, we thought this would make a nice display here. We're going to put it in a different place and show some of the newspaper clippings and things about some of the run-ins that we had with the Soviet Navy. Now you're looking into the second room of our museum. This is called the Desron 21 room, Cactus Squadron. We all know who they were. World War II, one of the greatest destroyer squadrons to ever sail the seas. On your left, in the lower left corner, you'll see a wreath, and that is to honor our 3 men that were lost when we hit the mine at Bataan Corregidor on February 14th, 1945. And in the archway and into the other room, you'll see a revolving platform. Well, we're going to replace that with, of all things, a helicopter. There will be a helicopter sitting there when you come here the next time, but right now that statue is called the Homecoming. And it's all 1940s, the sailor and the girl, you know how that was. Boy, we did that. We didn't necessarily marry the girl, but some of us did. And you'll see the sea bag and the whole thing, and the little boy tugging on his mom's dress. Who is this guy? You know, he hadn't seen him for a long time. But that's going to eventually be up at the main entrance when you come into the building. So now we're going to take you into the Squadron 21 room. Welcome to the Desron 21 Cactus Squadron room. On this wall we have a map of the world, and as we all know, most of our activities while we were on our ship in the squadron or in Pearl Harbor in the 50s and 60s, almost everything took place out here. This is the Western Pacific, and we're going to have little light bulbs, which are not in there yet, but we're going to use little LCD bulbs pressed into this map. This map is mounted on half-inch styrofoam. We're going to punch little holes in it and stick these little lights in where all the battles took place for the ships of Squadron 21. And they'll be red. Now, all the green lights that'll be on this map will be Liberty ports. And so, you know, those real important places like Sydney and Yokosuka and Hong Kong and those kind of places. So there'll be a console out here with buttons on it. And when you want to know, for instance, where's Guadalcanal at, why, you look for that button and push Guadalcanal and the little lights. And that way you'll be able to orient yourself as to where everything is. So we've had a lot of comments about this, because when people come in here that served in the Army or in the Air Force or everything, they're all looking over there in Europe to see where they were. So it's a kind of a popular attraction here at the museum. Now you're looking at our pride and joy. As I mentioned earlier, we had 8 men that we've found so far, and that's only out of 1,400 found shipmates out of over 4,000. We have found 8 men that went on after their admiral's career, or after their Radford career, and went on to become flag officers. We've had 1 vice admiral and 7 rear admirals. 8 altogether. Can you imagine that? And they're sending us their uniforms complete, even shoes and socks. And they're going to be standing up here in full view, 8 admirals with all the campaign bars on and everything else, with a background of Hawaii. And as you can see, the ship is out there near the horizon, passing by as it did all those years ago. We're going to have 8 admirals up there. And across here, you can see, here's one of the mannequins. This one is 6'3" for the tallest guy that we had as an admiral, and they go down to a 5'7". So these are custom-made mannequins that will be mounted up on this stage. Now side for the other ships in the squadron, and they'll start with the Fletcher, and then the Nicholas, or Jenkins, and Nicholas and Lavalette, and the O'Bannon already has part of their display in. So you can see what kind of space you're going to have here compared to any of the other naval museums, including Baton Rouge. We're going to give you space here that's 4 foot wide, 4 foot frontage, 2 feet deep, 7.5 high, glass doors with locks on them, and you'll have a wonderful exposure here, because we're expecting, when they get the theater operating across the street, we're expecting up to 400 people a day here. So everybody will know who, what, where, when, why of Desron 21, and including your ship, the USS O'Bannon, which I know you're all proud of, as we are of ours. This last booth here is for the Nicholas, and they've already got some stuff in here. And across this archway that goes into our 3rd room, on this side will be the Radford and her captain in uniform and all that stuff, with the Nicholas over here, because back here is the diorama of the rescue at Kula Gulf with the USS Helena, the Radford, and the Nicholas. And we're going to build a model back here 50 feet long, all in scale, of that rescue. And it'll be with very low light. The only time you'll be able to see anything is when the guns go off. And you'll see the flashes and the smoke and all this kind of stuff. And we're working on that room now as I speak. These other showcases will all be the Radford stuff, because it's our museum. But we're hoping that. But we've spent over $100,000 on this museum of our money, and we hope that you guys will think about that and kick in what you think is a really fair amount. I'll be sending your President a letter on that. And we'll appreciate any help you can give us on this museum that is going to make us all live forever. Thank you. My name's Vane Scott.